Station. They're saying Ambassador Mohammed will be with them at 7 a.m. Well, we can assure you she's in studio with us. So she's definitely going to be right here on KTN. She's our person of interest this morning. Keep your questions coming. We'll talk.
You've done.
I think we've done well. I think we've done well. We came in at a very challenging time for the country. We had just come through an election that wasn't very easy. It took us quite a bit of time to actually get into office and start, addressing issues of interest to the general public. It actually took quite a while because it was the first time that cabinet secretaries were being appointed from outside Parliament. And so, that took a while to get us all in, and then it took even longer to get us all vetted. For me, it was even, a little more because I needed to go and resign from the UN. And I had 2 more years to go. I just completed my first 2 years. And the Secretary General had expressed a desire for me to actually hand over my resignation in person. And so I had to go to New York and do that. So it even took a little bit longer. So we have been, as cabinet secretaries in office, a little less than a year, a little less than a year, because the president was sworn in, and it was almost 1.5 months before we actually, came into office. For some of us, it was a month; for others, 1.5 months. And since then, I think for us in the ministry, we, like others, I guess, we hit the ground running. We had a lot of work, to do, given that the president's policy was Afrocentric. Foreign policy was Afrocentric, and therefore there was a focus to move away from the attention, excess attention, I would say, that was being given to other regions of the world, and see what it was that we needed to do in Africa that we hadn't done before. And I think rightfully so, because as we started engaging with Africa, we realized that in fact there was such a huge market that needed to be,
that we're acceptable. I mean, and that's something that you said. I mean, and we'll get into that because the Americans are asking what is our foreign policy. But just before that, we wanted to talk, Ambassador Amina, the person. And so, talk to me. How did you first get the first call of, I want you to be my foreign secretary? How did it happen? When did you go for an interview? What happened?
I think we were all interviewed. And it's probably one of the longest interviews that I think all of us have had. But I got my call while I was actually at lunch. I had planned this lunch with a former colleague of mine for 3 weeks, and finally were able to actually go out and sit around the table. And just as we started eating, the call came through. And so I quickly, finished my lunch, and I was driven to State House, where then this interview was held. It was a very long interview, I can tell you. In the beginning, I didn't know why I was being interviewed, because I thought it was because we had requested for a meeting with the head of state for the heads of agencies, UN agencies in Nairobi. So I thought, oh my goodness, thank God.
It's happening.
It's happening, yeah. Now we'll be able to get this appointment after all, and get everybody to meet, the president and the deputy president. And so, that's what I thought it was all about, actually. And then I got there, and about 1 hour later, I realized that, in fact, it was an interview. Yeah, so basically that's how it happened.
Was it an easy decision for you? What did you have to consider to take this job? You had a great job. It was high flying. It was, everyone had destined that, you could possibly get to the top echelons of the UN. But then this, most like, a detour, complete detour to this high flying career that you had built. Was it an easy decision for you? What did it take for you to say yes to this job or not?
No, I think that in a way for me, because I had been in public service for so long, and it was something that I always enjoyed doing and I wanted to do, the decision itself was not difficult to make. I think for me it was just thinking about going back to public service, because by then I had done 2 years of the UN, but the rest of my life had been in public service. from one post to another. And by the time I left, I thought, okay, this is it. I've done my bit, serving serving my country at this level, at that level, and that this was an opportunity for me now to serve the international community as a whole, right? 190 plus, countries, and so, it was actually the farthest thing from my mind. So it came as a pleasant surprise. I think I felt greatly humbled and honored, because being called to serve your government at that level as a cabinet secretary, I think is probably the highest honor that you can get. A greater honor is being elected into office. That's a greater honor. But I think that for me, it was very, very humbling. I felt really privileged, and so it didn't take long to make the decision. But it was a transition that I had to think about a little, and I think it was also good that my family supported me, whether it was my brothers and sisters or my husband and my children. I had the conversation, and everybody felt that if it was what I wanted to do, then they would be there to support me. I think that the biggest decision we had to make was public service doesn't pay much. And I was coming from a job that was finally...
You're being paid, you're being compensated very well.
Yeah, that was paying me well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. But anyway, again, as I was told by my boss, public service is public service. And, I think you get compensated in a different way. Just the satisfaction that you're doing something for your country. And that sometimes you actually get to see the results of what you're doing. Is a bigger, I think, satisfaction than getting better paid. Yeah.
Well, that is very debatable. I mean, but I don't want to take you on that. It's a choice, a personal decision. But you have a young family, Ambassador. You have very young children, and how does this transition and getting into the job that you do, that involves you to be in very long meetings, traveling almost all the time, being called, on call all the time. How does this balance with your personal life and family?
Like I said, if I didn't have the support that I had at home, it would be much more difficult. But I know that as I leave, my husband is there, my daughter, and I have a family that is at different ages. Yeah? So I have a daughter that turned 25 yesterday, and so she, I think, takes care of her younger siblings, and especially the youngest one, who is 3. And so I don't feel I think the weight as much as I would have if either she was away from home and she was studying abroad, or she was working abroad. Would have been much more difficult. And if my husband was not giving up quite a bit to spend more time at home than he would normally do. So I think the support of the family has been just amazing. It's just been amazing, yeah. And Noor has managed to cope. I thought you'd forget me in the beginning. But, he hasn't, so... Yeah.
He keeps her probably on television, and watch mom,
Sometimes he does, yes. Sometimes he does, yeah.
That's interesting. Now, Ambassador, you're coming to this job, and the challenge, as we knew it and has been set even before taking this job, you're coming to a government that's going to get a different challenge, in terms of its foreign policy. In terms of the issues that this government was just coming into, and you're coming straight knowing these are the issues that you're going to tackle. Yeah. How did you prepare for this, knowing that, one, you're going to have to deal with your colleagues sitting from the other side of the table and arguing from a different point of view?
Diplomacy is about making compromises. You never really get your way. And in negotiating anything, you actually aim for the stars, but you end up getting the moon. And so you have to have, I think, an understanding of what it is that you really want to get. You plan for bigger, and you aim a little higher than that, and sometimes you get what you want, and other times you fall a little bit below that. But it's about making compromises. Because really, for you to be successful, everybody must walk away from that table feeling that they have achieved something. maybe not much, but they've achieved something, that they did not sit around the table with you and waste their time. And this is something that comes with, I think, the experience of having sat around these tables for a long time. Because when you start, I think you always expect to have your way. You come in, you think, okay, I've thought this through, and I will not accept anything less. But as you do more of that, and as you negotiate more and more, you realize that at the end of the day, you really have to make sure that everybody around that table doesn't probably feel as good as you do at the end of it, but feels comfortable enough to walk away from it, and to be able to actually get out. And if you're meeting the press, to say, yes, we've had a win-win here. I'm satisfied with what I have. It's not the best deal that I could have had, but within either the time that I had, or because of the deadlines that we have to meet, this is really the best deal that I could have at this time. So basically, it's really about making the compromises, but also knowing where the red lines are for you. Because you should not cross those lines. There are some issues that, for instance, if you cross that line, then you actually get into trouble because your instructions are clear. This is a no-go area. This we will never negotiate, right? So really, I think that it's also about being honest with the partner across the table and telling them, listen, you're asking for this, but this is not acceptable to us, and we will never get there. So let's look at something else, right? What else can I give you that would satisfy you at this time, right? Without you going where I can't go. You see. So again, I actually think that as long as what you take away is that you must make some compromises, and that everybody comes to sit around the table, negotiate because they want to get something out of it. They don't want to walk away empty-handed, and nobody will agree to walk away from the table empty-handed.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us to the question, what is Kenya's foreign policy?
Well, we have pillars of our foreign policy. Like I said, we're Afrocentric. So most of what we want to do going forward, right, has to be something that adds value to us, to our neighbors, to the region as a whole. It must be things that we can do together. Our policy is economic driven, right? And so you've had, I think, the president talk about economic diplomacy. And the intention is to open markets, to be able to trade better, to move our goods and services, to create opportunities for our people in the country and outside the country, to attract foreign direct investment, to ensure that our environment, and there we have environment diplomacy, that our environment is well protected. We've been quite successful actually with what we've been doing with poaching and the illegal trade, yes. In wildlife products. So that's an area that we are really keen on. On climate change, we are also very, very keen. In fact, we're in the process of making sure that we have a much more centralized policy on climate change than we've had before. We are very interested in ensuring that our diaspora contributes much more to economic development than they've done before. So we have a diaspora policy. We have a peace and security policy, which is basically what has made us, front and center of all the difficult, and the difficult issues that we're facing in our region, whether it is Somalia or South Sudan or DRC or CR, even Central African Republic. In all those countries, we are involved, much more in others than in others. So basically, those are the areas in which we have keen interest. We've also been doing a bit of work with the conference diplomacy, seeing whether we can attract more conferences to the country, so that we can use up the hotel space that we have, and all that. So, but mostly driven by economic diplomacy. Economic diplomacy,
and this has been translated that we are moving east. In the circle, you've had this before. It's not news that I'm breaking to you. You've had this before. That we're moving east, and we are, not really merely, just focusing on, West and, you know, our traditional partners. I don't know how to feel about that, because one, the would say, why are we leaving our traditional partners when really we isolating ourselves in that end? And why are we leaving them if there's not to be, you know, severing or ties or anything? Why are we focusing east on a positive note more than our traditional partners?
We're actually focusing everywhere. We're focusing everywhere. It's a very small marketplace. Everybody's competing. Everyone. There's nobody today that is growing that is not focusing east, west, and north and south. Everybody is doing it. We're not the only ones. Biggest, and I keep saying this, China's biggest trading partners are not African countries. They're the US and Europe. And that's why I think it makes so much sense for us to focus on, you know, on the continent, to do much more here economically than we do anywhere else. But we will look for markets everywhere in the world. And I don't think we will ever apologize for that, because we need to sell our products. If we're not able to sell everything to the traditional partners that we have, that are still our largest trading partners, we will have to look for other markets.
The counter-argument for that would be, China does not get many things from us. Let's say so Kenya. They don't buy many things from us. So why are we leaving the people who buy and sell from us to them?
We haven't left them. We still sell to those markets. We haven't left them. We still sell. We are growing, both with them and with others. So we haven't left anybody. But we're producing more, right? We're more efficient today. More people are involved in the production of goods and services, and we need to find additional markets. You know, the day that we say that we have enough markets and we stop looking for markets, I think would be a very sad day for this country, because we have such a youthful population, and we'll continue producing, we'll continue manufacturing in all areas. I mean, now innovation, technology, we are running with others, right, that are much more endowed than we are. So we must be able to find new markets for our products. We produce enough tea to sell to the UK, to Germany, to the US, to China, to Japan, to Russia, and to African countries. So I don't think that there's any discrepancy anywhere. There are no conflicts anywhere. And we didn't invent this. We didn't invent this, you know. Everybody else does it. You go to the United States around Christmas and look for toys for your children and tell me where those toys are manufactured. All of them, right? So it's not just Kenya that's doing this, not Africa that's doing this. And today we're actually entering into agreements with the countries around us. We have a special status agreement with Ethiopia, for instance. You know, we had a state visit, the first state visit to an African country, actually. This is an agreement, the special status agreement, that gives us a completely different status with Ethiopia. It opens up the market. It opens up for trade, for investments. It opens up in the infrastructure. You know, we jointly developing infrastructure. It opens up in the food security area, and so in agriculture. You know, so in every area, in manufacturing, and in creating joint ventures across the border. You know, so that's what it's about. It's about looking, always finding, always growing, because, you know, when you have a market and you have a demand out there, right, then you can drive supply, right?
So it's all about opportunities.
It's about opportunities, and it's about our growth, our economic growth. You know, we have been trading with a number of countries for a long time now. You know, we are growing, but not at the level and at the rate that we want to grow at. And so we believe that, like everybody else, look, I'll give you examples of China, India, Mexico, right? The only time that they actually started growing, tripling their ratio of GDP to trade to GDP, was when they opened up and found markets all over the world, right? And yes, they traded with their traditional partners, right? But they went outside that to find new markets, to find new investments, but also to find opportunities for their people to find jobs. And so, you know, all that is interlinked. We are not doing anything differently.
Making quite a case there. I want to get to the challenges that we face in the region. And South Sudan, so many months on, after, they had an issue, with their government and their politics, and Kenyans were caught up in that. One, what was our response to that? And then secondly, what are we doing for Kenyans? Is that, can we safely say South Sudan, since there hasn't been any issue per se, it is now ready and good for business? Kenyans can actually go back, those who came back home. And what is our response to what's happening in South Sudan?
I don't remember where I said this, but maybe in the conversations that we've had before. I think for all of us in the region, the biggest surprise and the biggest shock was what happened in South Sudan. It was unexpected. We knew that there were some challenges, but all of us have challenges. Yeah? What we did not expect was that there would be this explosion, right? And that the challenges that they had, the political challenges that they had, the issues with democracy within the SPLM party, yeah, would actually develop to the extent that you have an almost full-blown civil war in South Sudan. That was a surprise for us. Yeah? We did not see it coming, and if we did not think it would be that first. We actually thought that was just competitive politics, and that at the end of the day, they had elections planned. I don't know whether they will take place now, but they had elections planned for 2015. And so we thought, okay, this is the run-up to the elections, and everybody is kind of carving up, some space for themselves within which to, and raising issues that they think they can challenge the government on, come the campaign period. So it was really a shock for us on the 15th evening when, there was gunfire all over Juba, and by 16 people were running away from Juba, and the UN camp was receiving, lots of, people coming in because they were afraid, and, they were really frightened that bad things would happen to them. Mm-hmm. And then it started spreading, and we thought maybe we could contain it, and so the IGAD did all that it could do. Actually, I think we broke the record, because in 4 days, using just text messages, we're able to get all the foreign ministers of the region to travel to Juba. 3.5 days after the event, the first outbreak of violence. And so we thought at that time that we could actually contain it in Juba, and that within a few weeks it would be over. I don't think we had actually considered that the differences were so deep-rooted that it would take this long to resolve it. But in any case, I feel personally that the worst is over. We have had a number of summits. We had the third one, actually, in Addis, after our state visit on the 13th. And we've agreed that we were going to ensure that there's a stabilization force from the region that would go in, not a big force, a small one, that would support a monitoring and verification mechanism. Because, we actually had talks in Addis where they signed a cessation of hostilities agreement in January. But it hasn't really been implemented fully. There have been violations of the ceasefire agreement. They had two agreements. One was the ceasefire, the other one was the release of detainees. That one we actually have much more success, if you like, than the other one, because of the 11 detainees, 7 were released, and they were released to His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta. And so there are 4 that are still in detention, and they've actually been charged, and they went to court this week for the first time. Mm-hmm. So those 4 are still there. We are asking for them to be released as well, because we think that they would make a contribution to the peace process. On the cessation of hostilities, we've had serious challenges, serious. We have a monitoring and verification mechanism that has been put in place. It's not operational yet because, again, there's the fear that something would happen to the monitoring and verification mechanism because hostilities have not ceased. And so the idea is to have a stabilization force that would then go in with the monitoring and verification mechanism and teams to ensure that the ceasefire is not broken, to monitor it, to record any violations, so that we hopefully can take action against anybody who violates the ceasefire.
But it's taking a bit of time.
It's
taking too long.
It's taken long. It's taken long. Well, not too long, but it's taken long, and a lot of lives have been lost. And I think that's the most regrettable. I think the most regrettable aspect of this is the number of lives that have been lost, the humanitarian crisis that's ongoing and growing. Right? There are too many people in camps. There's an outflow of people into camps in Kenya, in Uganda, and in Ethiopia, Sudan also. Yeah. So there's a lot of movement and exodus.
So you advise to Kenyans who working or who left?
It depends on where they're going back to. You see, we evacuated almost 4,000 Kenyans. Okay. The latest information we have is a few of them have gone back. Most of them have gone back to Juba. So Juba is quiet, it's calm. If they feel that they are safe there, that's okay. But I think it would not be advisable to go back to areas where fighting is still ongoing, or at least where there is danger that there could be an outbreak of violence. I think we should avoid those areas.
All right, I'm talking to Ambassador Amina Mohammed. I want to take a very short break. When I come back, I want to come back with responses and feedback for you from the online community, and as well tackling the elephant in the room. All right, you're watching Morning Express. Person of interest, we have Ambassador Amina Mohammed, Kenya's Foreign Affairs Secretary, talking to us about the challenges of the Foreign Office, her work, her duties, and where we're going as a country in terms of foreign policy. When you come back, I'll be taking your feedback, and indeed, we'll be asking all the questions that you want to ask in the next few short minutes before she leaves. Rosendo asks, when will ambassadorial appointments and placements be completed?
I can't give a date. I can't give an exact date. I can say that it's ongoing, and that as you know, the first step is always to send out a request for a person to be accepted as ambassador to the country to which this person is being sent. It's only then that actually the process begins. And so it's a process that has begun, but it's going to take a while, because after we get to a certain level, we still have to go through Parliament, at least the parliamentary committee, and discuss these appointments and have the ambassadors, taken through a process. So it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't want to give a date, but I think it's not too far off. Mm-hmm. It's not too far off. Mm-hmm. And there are quite a number to be filled, so obviously care has to be taken to make sure that we get the right people for the right, posts. They're not all the same. They're multilateral, they're bilateral, they're regional. There are some that are further, filled. So basically, a lot of thought has to go into it. And there are all sorts of things that have to also happen. The issue of balancing as well, and making sure that we have, a number, an adequate percentage of women, in there. And yeah, so it's not an easy process, but it's ongoing. And I can assure you that it's not going to take too long now.
Too long from now.
No.
We'll keep you in the word. Maskani Taifa says, Ambassador Amina, there are Kenyans languishing in Ugandan prison. Is it an issue that you have visited? Are you planning or done anything for these Kenyans to be brought back home to face the charges or anything back at home?
Actually, we have that conversation ongoing with my counterpart in Uganda. It has to reach a certain, I think, a level of discourse for this to happen. We don't have an exchange of prisoners, for instance, agreement, and so we're working on a lot of these issues, but the conversation is there. It's been ongoing. It's an issue that His Excellency the President has raised. So basically we are working at it. Again, I don't know how long it's going to take. But for sure the legal process has taken too long. It has taken too long. many years. So we need to get to the bottom of it, and to get that done. But on the issue of exchange of prisoners, it's not just with Uganda. I think we have actually many more people languishing in jails in other countries, in China. We have a few in other countries in Asia. We have a few in other countries in Africa. And so we are discussing all of them, yeah? Focusing on some more than others, but discussing all of them. Because we want to see, we want to get a way forward.
Tell our friends now, I mean, we should be able to get our Kenyans back and, charge them if we must back at home. That's true.
That's true. But there have to be some arrangements formalized, and it cannot be an issue that's handled ad hoc, right? There has to be a structure that's put in place to handle issues like this. We start the conversation, and then it's taken up by the Attorney General and the DPP. Yeah.
When will you organize the Ministry's online presence? It's on site and those embassies and missions. That's from Owen Devian.
When will I?
Organize the Ministry's online presence. It's on of those embassies and missions. I think trying to collapse
absolutely.
all of them.
No. We actually, what we're doing is we're working on a portal for that, to make sure that everybody is online and we can communicate and dialogue, and we can also have an interactive sessions with the public. But our website is actually it's up, it's running, it's very well done, and we are in conversation with a lot of people, but we are working on all the embassies. We have 52, and most of them had not reached the level that we are at ourselves, and so we are trying to make sure that we get them up to speed. And we start actually having conversations through video conferencing more than anything else, to cut on costs, because we've all been told to cut on our costs. So less travel, more engagement though, but through video conferencing.
Through video conferencing. And a final question from online. Someone asks, surely you must have a position on Crimea and the Ukraine issues. It's a developing issue, it's international issues. What is Kenya's position? Who are we standing with in this moment of, great things degenerating very quickly?
Well, actually, it's a discussion that's ongoing. As you know, the Security Council took a position. There was a resolution that was tabled by the United States. It didn't go through. We have been in discussions both with the Russians and the UK and the US. We have conversations that are ongoing. We are looking at it holistically, and we should be able to express ourselves, fairly shortly. I'll tell you this: that for us, of course, Crimea, like all the other, challenges that we have, priority, but urgent priority for us, of course, South Sudan, Somalia, DRC. Those are urgent priorities. There, people are actually dying in huge numbers. There we have a humanitarian crisis. There we actually need to put in place mechanisms to be able to stop the hostilities. So for us, urgent priority, our neighborhood. Then in the whatever second, if you like, secondary, is issues such as the Crimea, which we are involved with and having discussions on. But as of now, we haven't taken a concrete position yet, because seriously, 75% of the time has actually been taken up by our neighbors.
Mm-hmm. And as we wind this down, the question that also Kenyans wanted to ask about the ICC, are we done with challenging, any other, mandate or laws or whatnot in the ICC cases, in the Kenyan situation? Are we done with that bit from your point of view?
Oh no, I think that we will never be done with the issues surrounding the ICC. We are party to the Rome Statute. We are parties of a very exclusive club of members that have signed on to the Rome Statute. So we'll never be done with it. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, we have the best international criminal institution that they could ever be. So we want an ICC that will set standards for the rest of the world. We want an ICC that we can look up to. Right now, it's a new baby. It's learning to walk. We cannot let it tumble, right? So we will be there to make sure that the ICC continues evolving, developing in the right direction.
So that's very
so
diplomatic,
we're not
Ambassador.
done. We're
That's
not done
very
with it.
diplomatic.
Yeah, we're not done with it.
Yeah, the bigger question would have
We have
been,
asked, no, we have asked for amendments to some of the articles.
So we're still challenging some
the
articles
statute.
in the ICC?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we will do that through the Assembly of State Parties, because we're a state party. And we will have discussions with other state parties. And it doesn't matter whether we have cases in court or not. I think the intention is to just make sure that this system continues developing and evolving.
How has ICC interfered so far in the running of this government?
Well, it hasn't really interfered in the running of the government. What it did was it distracted us for a moment, because of the demand that our president and our deputy president should attend court sessions, which was unprecedented, never done anywhere else in the world. And basically what it meant was it would have taken our leaders away from the mandates that they were given by the people of this country. And so the big question was, what happens to that mandate which was given to the president and the deputy president by millions of people? There had to be a balance that was struck to allow both to continue. And we said from the beginning that we were not there to circumvent justice, that we were not going to run away from justice, that we were going to cooperate with the court, that we had done that for 6 years running, without even one day questioning our cooperation with it. So basically, I think we are where we should be with this court. And again, it's our business as parties to the Rome Statute to continue, challenging and improving it.
So to be clear, from where you sit, we are not trying to leave the Rome Statute. We are partners, and we're there to stay. From where you sit.
Well, from where I sit, we are committed to the Rome Statute, and that our intention is to ensure that we continue to improve the operationalization, the workings of the Rome Statute, of the International Criminal Court. We make sure that it operates in a way that does not interfere with the democracies in our countries.
Ms. Amina, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate your performance in the last one year or so?
I think Kenyans will rate me.
From your perspective.
And my bosses will rate me, but I wouldn't do that, because again, there's nothing that we do on our own, nothing at all. We work as a team. The whole government works together. There's nothing that the ministry can do without reference to any of the other ministries. And most of the work we do is basically open the door for everybody else. We have an official visit by the Foreign Minister of Seychelles right now that's ongoing from yesterday. And apart from having the first meeting with me, he's had meetings with the Minister for Tourism, he's had meetings with the Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury. They've signed a avoidance of double taxation agreement. He's had meetings with our defense people, including the Cabinet Secretary for Defense, the PS for Defense. So we open the door, and then others can participate. So basically, we work all together, and I think we're going to be rated as a government.
As a government, not as individuals.
No.
You've done well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambassador Amina. We're talking to the Cabinet Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Amina Mohammed. And yes, we've got it. We've got the foreign policy, we've got the challenges, and we have an open door policy here as well. Anytime you feel like you have an issue that you want to prosecute, please feel free to come and see all this office.
Thank you.
All right. Right. Sophia, you've had the discussions.
Yes, I have. And Ambassador, before we let you go, we've talked a lot about the serious stuff. But somebody who's watching and thinking, you're very busy with your schedule. You have children, a husband, your girlfriends, you have your hobbies and things you love to do. How do you balance all of that? How do you still have Amina time?
I think what I think all of us try to do, including you.
Yeah.
I think we're all in the same boat. Yeah. you make sure that even the little time that you have for your friends, for your family is quality time. So you try and milk that as much as possible, so that if you don't see your friends for the next 2 months, right, at least the 1 or 2 hours that you spend with them, makes a difference. I think it's also just good, practice to, call people around you once in a while. Not all the time, because sometimes you actually don't have the time to do that. But once in a while, to just make sure that everything's fine and it's okay. And if they need any encouragement, any support, that you're there to give it. Just make it count.
Yeah.
It may be very little time, but use it as much as you can.
As best you can. Thank you, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you.
Our person of interest this morning. Stay with us on Morning Express. We're back in a moment.